The following program is a SUTV student production. The views expressed are not necessarily those of Salisbury University, the University System of Maryland, its regents, administration, officers, employees, or representatives.
Well, first off, Mr. Purnell, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Why are you running?
I served the city of Crisfield after retirement, 8 years as a mayor, and there were many times that I needed support from the legislature. Norm Conway, who represents the next district up, has been more than willing. I just wasn't getting the support from the local delegate that I felt I should, and I just felt like that our county and our district needed to be better represented.
What makes you think that you're the person to better represent the area?
My city government experience includes 18 years. 11, actually, let's see, 4, 8, 11 as a mayor, and the rest as a city councilman. Prior to that, I was in corporate America. I worked for a series of companies. I went through the period in the 70s and 80s, early 90s and 90s, where companies were buying companies like crazy. So actually I got bought and sold about 5 times. But my job was, I was a director of new business development. So I interacted with government, federal government people, state government people on a regular basis. So a combination of that interaction and the interaction that I had as a mayor, where, you know, I did a number of projects for the city of Crisfield, which required me to interact with Department of Environment, you know, Department of Business and Economic Development, Community Development Block Grant, a lot of people, and I just feel like I've got a better insight as to how state government functions.
What do you think the citizens of Crisfield would say about your time as mayor? Or what would you hope they would say?
Well, I would hope they would say I did a good job. I served the last 8 years during, obviously, one of the worst economic situations that we have had in this country in 50 years. And I managed to acquire a number of grants to accomplish a number of civic projects. Rebuilt the dock at Crisfield. I went through Hurricane Sandy as a mayor on the street during the storm, and I think helped to turn the city back to restoration. A wind turbine to replace the electrical sources that we have presently for our sewer plant. We spend about $250,000 a year for electricity. Rebuilding a local factory. Not quite done yet, but we'll get there. The city will get there, and to be able to offer that to a company or companies to come in and employ Crisfielders. Sherwood-Williams helped them upgrade and retool 100 new jobs at Crisfield. Worked very hard at it, and I think as any mayor will tell you, you're going to have situations where you're not going to do exactly what some people want you to do. You have to follow rules, and you have to follow regulations, and occasionally that doesn't fit well with the citizenry.
Tell me, if elected, what would be some of your top priorities, or what would be most important to you?
A combination. I think education and the education of the American youth, both from the job side or the industrial side. Many of your large employers who require blue-collar workers today will tell you they need a very specific type of blue-collar worker, a very smart, computer-literate worker who is capable of operating the machinery and using the tools that are necessary in today's manufacturing to be competitive. The rest of education overall, because I think our country moves as we become a larger portion of our population becomes educated. Moving away from that, I think the pendulum has swung too far to the right when it comes to regulation. A combination of the Department of Environment, the EPA, and other regulatory agencies within the state, I think have gone too far. I don't think the legislators have taken as active a part as they possibly could to curtail and see that the regulations that they passed in the legislature are actually being enforced in a common sense manner. We on the shore suffer a lot because we're next to the world's largest estuary, and everybody's interested in cleaning up the bay, and I'm interested in cleaning up the bay. You know, I grew up with a pristine bay and understand what it's all about. I lived in a water town that seafood town that depended on livelihood was all connected with the bay. So I'm very interested in it. I think most of your elected officials are interested in that. But I think we've carried it just a little too far. We've put the burden on our watermen and our farmers, and actually our business development people when they try to build facilities on the shore. And there's almost no place on the shore that you can go that you don't interfere in some way, either with farmland, forest land, or the bay. And I think a curtailment of some of that, a more common sense approach. You know, what's good for this situation is probably not good for that situation. I encountered a number of times when I was forced to spend more money than I should as a mayor to meet some regulatory law that really was loose, really didn't need to be applied to a municipality, simply trying to put in things like, you know, docks and libraries and things of that type. It just, you know, over-regulation.
Let's talk about that first one a bit, education. Mm-hmm. What would be some of your plans to ensure that Marylanders, particularly those on the shore, received equal education on the elementary through high school level? And then on the second part of that, what about this level of education on the college level? Would you have any plans or would you support any legislation that would kind of slow the increase in tuition or help relieve some of that student debt?
Let's go to the first part. Let's go to kindergarten, elementary school, junior high, and high school. The state has done what I consider to be a marvelous job. From the Thornton Act on, whenever you have had a administration in place who has been interested in education, and you have had most of the time, in the O'Malley administration, for instance, and they have really actually overfunded what the requirements from Thornton were, just in case they got to a situation where they couldn't meet the requirements in latter years. You've got one of the best ranked one of the best education systems in the United States. And I think that only comes from the efforts that have been put forth to fund schools and to fund teacher salaries and to fund budgets to provide education at the level that it should be. The No Child Left Behind, the Common Core, the products that are coming into the schools now, I've talked to many of the teachers. Many of them don't like them. Many of them don't agree with them. I think there needs to be, again, I go back to the common sense approach. You know, I think that these plans have to be constantly reviewed to make sure that we're not headed in a direction where we're ignoring some of the common sense lessons that we've learned in the past simply to meet the requirements of a program that was put out by the Federal Department of Education. So I think that should be looked at. I think you should listen more to the people in the classroom, the teachers, as to what needs to be done, what the students need to receive. Do you abandon geography? Do you abandon the ability to write and some of the other things just to meet a Common Core test score? I think not. I think you should take the time to listen to the teachers in the classroom. When it comes to colleges, you know, our legislature, our local delegate, not my delegate, but the delegate representing Salisbury, Norm Conway, has done a phenomenal job with Salisbury University. University of Maryland Eastern Shore has also been well supported. In your quest to control tuition, you know, I went through the tuition thing as a parent. I put 2 kids through college. Understand the difficulties of meeting the tuition requirements. Understand the ease of borrowing money that the students got to pay back later. Both of my kids came out of college debt-free. None of them have a payment to make each month to pay for their tuition. I think that's an issue that really has to be studied and looked at. I don't know that you just throw the money out there for tuition to every student who just thinks they want to go to college, but I think the avenue should be there that the student has the opportunity to acquire it through their own efforts, i.e. meaning that their grades, their GPAs, their efforts that they've put forth should be rewarded with lower tuition.
Help me, moving on to a different topic, the race in particular. What makes you think that you can win?
Well, you know, I've been involved in a lot of political races in a municipality. I guess about 5 of them, if my memory is right. Most of the time, I find that honesty, sincerity, and seeking to meet the needs of the people usually prevail. I haven't sunk untold dollars into this thing. I haven't had untold dollars of support. Most of it has been my own efforts. But I firmly believe an educated populace who watches elections, we all say it's a popularity contest, and really it is. You don't elect ugly politicians, I guess that's the way to describe it, and there's a lot of other things that people in their minds take into consideration when they're voting. But I think the real point of serving in political office is to make sure, absolutely sure, you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the betterment of the populace, and that you're sincere and honest in what you do. And I am. I really am.
We know that there's a separation across the country between conservatives and liberals. And it's no different here in the state of Maryland. A little bit less so on the Eastern Shore, but it still exists. If elected, how would you make sure that voices of all are heard, voices of everyone in your district on both sides of the aisle?
I grew up in an era where Democrats and Republicans were able to get along with each other. My father was a Democrat. My older brother was a Democrat. The brother above him was a Democrat. The brother above him was a Republican, and my mother was a Republican. We all lived in the same house, and we didn't fight. I think the conservative right-wing situation versus the liberal side of the thing, it's gotten totally out of hand. The mass media facilities that are available, the tools that are available to distort information and to quantify information and to redistribute information have led us to a point where points of view, we don't seem to know where to stop when we're trying to make a point. There's a point where truth seems to fade. You know, the majority of the population I find is be it Democrat or Republican, is roughly in the middle. And I think, you know, I think that's the way it should be. You need multiple political parties. But, you know, a swing totally to the right or swing totally to the left, I don't think benefits anybody. And I think time has shown us that. If you go back and what do they say about history? Understanding history so you don't make the same mistakes again. And I think if you go back and look, you'll see that the middle of the road approach. Sure, we don't want taxes. We don't want large taxes. We don't want more taxes. But you got to sit down and look at each tax and what it actually its purpose is, and what it's doing, how it's funded, and where it's spent, and how it's spent. I really feel that holding the bureaucracy to the line of spending the tax dollars the way they were originally intended to be spent can solve that problem. And you know, if the state of Maryland is presently run by a Democratic Party, and it's been run by the Democratic Party for a number of years, but it wouldn't bother me if it was 50-50. You know, as long as people stay within reasonableness and approach this government situation the way it was intended. It was never intended to be a profession. So.
Another question about if elected, it's the perception of many on the shore that the voices over the bridge are a little bit more mute in the legislature, that, you know, the bigger cities kind of get the chunk of the attention and even the funding. For one, do you agree with that? And if you do, how would you go about solving that and making sure the voices of those on the shore are heard?
Well, one man, one vote is a law. And if you have 24,000 people living in one block in Baltimore, that 24,000 people deserves to have their opinion voiced as well as the 24,000 that are listed in Somerset and Worcester County. We're a little bit spoiled. we used to have, a state representation set up where every county had a senator and every county had 2 delegates and so forth. One man, one vote took that away. I feel like I have to go to the Baltimore City or Baltimore County or Montgomery County representative and sit down and explain our situation. I have to encourage them to join in the areas where the shore needs help. And at the same time, I have to be reasonable enough to understand their problems and their needs and the things that drive, a large urban area. I lived in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area for roughly 25 years. I traveled the Beltway and I traveled the subway. I fought the congestion. I was there during 9/11. I understand how cities function and how it is. And those folks deserve the same attention that we do. But I think there has to be a reasonableness on both sides. And I think part of the problem is I'm not so sure that people have reached across not so much across the aisle, but across the bay to the representatives on the other side of the bay and really try to explain the situation that you have on the shore to the folks that are representing the people on the other side of the bay.
Finally, is there anything else you'd like students to know or anyone else that may be watching?
Well, my experience at SU, I graduated in 1985, proudly wear the ring, was primarily a night school experience. My 2 kids came here and lived here. My son lived on the corner of College Avenue and whatever street runs behind the school, and the brick house that's there now owned by the college. The daughter lived in an apartment down the street here. College experience is wonderful. Salisbury University's experience and the exposure that it gives you and the environment that it gives it to you in, I think is phenomenal. I welcome, folks from away from here that have come and gotten an education at SU, and I think everybody that has are proud. The school turns out good graduates, and it's a great program in all areas, in education, accounting, business, and so forth. I graduated with a degree in business. My daughter graduated with a degree in nursing, and my son graduated with a degree in accounting. So, we kind of tried all the schools here. Great school, great experience. Continued support is absolutely necessary.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Purnell.
Thank you.